Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Expert Examiner IELTS. My name is Glyn, and in this video, I'm going to give some feedback on James's speaking test. Remember, if you'd like to have your own free practice speaking test with feedback, or if you'd like me to check your IELTS writing, then join one of my groups. I'm on Facebook and Telegram. Yeah, let's get into the feedback. Good afternoon. My name is Glyn. Would you please tell me your full name?
Good evening from Vietnam. My name is Võ Hoành Huy. That's my full name, but you can actually call me James for short.
Okay, thank you, James. Now, in this first part of the test, I'm going to ask you some questions about yourself. Do you work or do you study?
Currently, I'm not working anymore and focusing on my IELTS test, for my license to be like an English speaking tour guide.
Yeah, it's kind of a tricky thing because, like, sometimes people don't fit neatly into those categories of like working or studying. It always seems to me a strange question to begin IELTS, but it is often there. Do you work or do you study? I mean, there are some people who don't work and don't study. Yeah.
So yeah.
And do you work as a tour guide at the moment? I'm just checking because before in our conversation before the test, the candidate mentioned that he works or worked as a tour guide, and I wasn't quite sure if he still works there. So I'm just checking, if he still works as a tour guide, I'll ask him questions about that because I don't really want to ask questions about IELTS. I don't like talking about IELTS in the IELTS exam.
Nope, I'm not working anymore. I'm
Okay.
taking a gap year to focus on my IELTS exam.
Sorry, most of my commentary has been about myself so far. Sorry about that. Candidate has started positively, developing answers, very accurate grammar. Candidate seems very comfortable in his answers, but it's still part one. And how long have you been preparing for IELTS? So, since the candidate doesn't work and is only studying for IELTS, I have to ask questions about IELTS.
So I quit my job about in January.
Just not about, we just get that, like, the accent is noticeable there. It doesn't block the meaning here, but we hear that about, so dropping that T. We've seen a few times on this channel that people from East Asia often have difficulties with the pronunciation of the final consonant sound. So instead of about, we get about. Now, sometimes in L1 English, this happens from time to time too.
So it has been like 7 months.
Okay, great grammar. It has been like 7 months. And it does put a little too much stress, I think, on the auxiliary, where he says it has been about 7 months instead of it's been about 7 months. Sometimes we put that stress on the auxiliary for emphasis, right? It hasn't been about 7 months. It has been about 7 months when we're correcting people, when we want to shine a light on the auxiliary. But otherwise, we would say it's been about 7 months, or if you want to use the full form, it has been about 7 months, but not it has been about 7 months. It's not going to kill the candidate's pronunciation score, but it is something to look at.
So I quit my job about
Just listen to it again.
in January. So it has been like 7 months
It has been like instead of it's been like 7 months.
already, and I took my
Do you think the candidate's a bit of a long talker? Like, I feel like if I didn't interrupt him at all, he would just keep speaking.
around 3 months to travel
In part one, once you've answered the question, developed a little, that's the time to stop. We don't need to keep adding detail.
around the country, and I have been preparing the test.
No, the candidate also struggles with the and th sound, so he often replaces them with a d or a t. So he said around the country, around the country, and this is a feature. This is quite common in many different varieties of L1 English, using that d and t or v and f.
For in about like 4 months. Yeah.
And what do you enjoy about preparing for this test?
First of all, I have like
this, first of all,
an opportunity to go to the cafe. That is a good reason.
and just noticing now the number of times the candidate's using as the test goes on, you'll hear it and hear it and hear it. There's an overuse of this filler, and like.
To go to the cafe, just to sit down and study and enjoy a cup of coffee. So that is like the thing I
Chunking's really good though, and a cup of coffee, and a cup of coffee. Chunking is really good.
enjoy the most when I, prepare for my test.
But the candidate often, like, this is the thing with long talkers, right? Long talkers say something and then they say the same thing again in other words, and then they say the same thing again in other words. And I do think this candidate is a bit of a long talker. This isn't because English is his second language. I know many, many people who have English as a first language who are also long talkers. But what you ask someone like, when did you last go out? They say, oh, I last went out 7 days ago. So that's about a week. So yeah, about a week ago, I last went out. So with my friends, a week ago we were. So 1 week ago, which is 7 days ago, which is a quarter of a month ago, I went out with my friends. And it's like, okay, but try to say what you want to say in one attempt. I don't know why this happens. Sometimes it can be an anxiety thing. Sometimes it can be a psychological fear of being misunderstood that we feel we need to keep rephrasing and keep reformulating. It's not a good thing to do that in the IELTS test. And what are you planning to do when you finish this preparation?
So first of all, I'm gonna get like
So we get that first of all again. So just be careful. We don't want to overuse it. We had it in the last question.
a high score in the IELTS test first, and then
So notice, right? First of all, I'm going to get a high score in the IELTS test first. And it's like, we don't need that first of all and first. Again, try to say things in one go.
I'm gonna apply it into the tourism department in Ho Chi Minh City, and then get the license to be an official tour guide. And after that, I'm gonna work.
Okay, thank you. Let's talk about having fun. What do you usually do to have fun? Like the use of gonna as well. I'm gonna.
So I
Have you noticed the you knows yet? So
I enjoy football. I enjoy playing football.
Again, right? Doubling up. Yeah, I enjoy football. I enjoy playing football. You don't need that same sentence twice.
So whenever I finish my study, it is usually around
I get that whenever I finish my study, just when I finish studying or after I finish studying.
5 p.m. in the evening. I'm gonna pack everything up and then go to the beach, and then I play football, with the people around the beach, and then that is when I can.
So just accent maybe is just a little bit of confusion with the pronunciation.
And then that is when I can kind of like escape the reality.
We don't want to go into too much deep detail in part one. Right? Part one is supposed to be just exchanging normal, familiar information. Sorry, exchanging information on normal, familiar topics. We don't want to go into escaping reality, right? What type of things do you do to have fun? Oh, I really like playing football. My friends and I play football like 2 or 3 times a week, actually. But we don't play it on grass. We play on the beach. Full stop, done. No more. We don't need to add to escape reality and all of this stuff. Yeah, it's too deep for part one.
And enjoy and get into the flow to
Thank
play
you.
football.
Yeah, so we do it. We play football to escape reality and to get into the flow of playing football. You're I don't know why you're making this so complex. It doesn't need to be complex. It's part one. We want to exchange simple information about common familiar topics.
So
And is it easier for you to have fun alone or with other people? I think it's much easier for me to have fun with other people. I'm quite a sociable person, and as I mentioned, I play football. So, yeah, with other people. Full stop, done.
I think like as a footballer myself, I think like
We get a lot of this filler language.
having fun with the other people is like the most important thing. because like we
But it's the most important thing, right? Listen to the question. Is it easier for you? Not what is the most important thing. Is it easier for you to have fun alone or with other people?
are social animals, right? So
Again, humans are social animals. It's a nice phrase. But this is part one, and part one should be personal. We don't want to talk about people in general being social animals. That's for part three. In part three, we want to speak about people in general. In part one, we want to talk about ourselves and again, exchanging simple ideas.
be being able to socialize and do that kind of activity that you like with the other people is very like essential for your health, especially your mental health.
And again, we get into generalisms here about how socializing is important for one's mental health. That's not what part one is, right? Is it easier for you to have fun alone or with other people? For me, it's easier to have fun alone because, I like playing video games. So I just like to sit down, relax, have some tasty snacks and play video games. And for me, this is bliss. I don't need to go outside. I don't need to worry about the weather. It's just easy. Right? About me. Not true, but
So my answer
and
is yes.
thank you. When did you last go out and have fun with some friends?
You mean my actual friends?
Unnecessary, right? You mean my actual friends? Like, what else? What else could I mean? So sometimes I don't know. Again, the candidate is a long talker, and the candidate does have. Um, I wouldn't say. I wouldn't say the candidate is nervous because the candidate does seem quite comfortable and quite confident as a speaker of English. But it does seem to be. I don't want to use the word neurosis because neurosis is a strong term, and I'm certainly not qualified to diagnose that. But I would say that the candidate is a little bit of a neurotic speaker.
So the last time when I went out and had fun with my friend was like a week ago.
We could just start with a week ago. When did you last go out with your friends? A week ago. And then tell me what you did. We don't. You mean my actual friend, right? My actual. Okay. So the last time I, the last time I went out with my friends, it was like probably. Of course, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but that's what I mean when I say that the speech sounds just slightly neurotic.
Right? So it was like a rainy day, and I just I thought that I just needed.
Candidates telling me what type of day it was. Just tell me what you did. It was a week ago, and what did you do with your friends? That it was a rainy day feels like extra information, and adding extra information is fine, but really, we just want a direct answer first. Last week, what did you do? And then add some extra information.
Some beers, and then I picked up the phone, called my friend, and then we had some beers. While watching while looking at the rain. It was kind of
Thank,
like
thank you.
enjoyable.
Let's talk about humor now. What kind of see kind of the movement of the candidate also suggests, and I don't mean psychological neurosis, I just mean that the speech sounds neurotic. Kind of things make you laugh.
Definitely like the stand-up comedy. I love watching stand-up comedy, especially about about the US, the American comedy.
Again, the candidate at the US and then changed it for, the American. Why do we need to change that? US is fine here. So we have a um we have an expression in English like take one bite of the cherry. It means, take your opportunity the first time. Don't always come back and take more bites at the cherry. Um, it's fine to say American, it's fine to say US. I like US stand-up comedy, but there's chaos in your speech where maybe you know too many words or too many phrases and they're all battling to get out and you're trying to use all of them. It's part one. I like watching stand up comedy. One of my favorite comedians is Louis C.K. because, he has very interesting observations about life, although a lot of people have criticized his behavior off the stage.
Canadians. So they talk a lot about the culture, and I find that they
Again, you get the culture that I can't really reproduce, and it always sounds, it always sounds slightly mocking, I think, when a, a British person tries to reproduce the sounds of people from East Asia. I'm not doing this in a mocking or a comedic way. I'm just trying to show you what I hear, like the culture, the culture. It just feels it's all right. It's okay. It's easily understandable. But I can't say that the accent, has a slight impact on intelligibility, just slight.
the American culture is really different from the Vietnamese culture. And I sometimes I if I find out I can't understand their jokes or their
Will say though, in terms of grammatical accuracy, the candidate is phenomenal. Like we really, really, I haven't noticed a single grammar mistake yet.
their talks, oh,
Thank
I
you.
will laugh like
And I have to interrupt. And are
yeah a
you good
lot.
at telling jokes?
Um, yeah, I think like I'm a comedian myself. I'm a kind of like comedian myself.
Again, we get that repetition of that same thing.
Because like so a lot I got a lot of feedbacks from my tourists that I'm very funny.
The candidate is a funny guy. I spoke to him a little bit before the test, a bit after the test. Definitely a funny guy. Very positive.
And as a tour guide, you need to be funny. You need to be engaged with
And again, notice how he's going into generalisms here. As a tour guide, you need to be. Now, a little bit of like widening the scope and generalization, a little bit of it is okay. But remember, it's part one, it's personal, it should be about you.
your tourist as well. So I think like yeah, I don't think that I'm a funny person, but the others think that I'm a funny person.
So again, we get repetition of idea. And
So
do you
it depends.
And again, he just can't end the conversation. Again, this is also a sign of neurotic speech where a person can't end the turn. They have to like keep adding stuff and keep adding stuff and keep adding stuff. Do you like sharing memes with your friends?
Memes? Yes, I have a friend, who loves memes as well.
Everyone needs a friend who loves memes. We should all. I have a student, or I had a student about. We stopped having classes, I think, about a year and a half ago. I haven't had any conversation with him at all, but he still sends me memes and reels almost every day. Everybody needs this kind of person.
And yeah, so
Thanks, Stas.
that is our daily habit, like we share whenever I see a meme, a good meme, of course, I definitely think about him first. And whenever he sees like a meme as well, a good meme or sometimes very bad memes, he also shares it to me.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. All right, so in this next. All right, so what can I say about part one? The positive features, like vocab, is great. Really has enough vocab comfortably to deal with all of these topics. Awesome. Grammar is great. No mistakes, nice variety of grammatical constructions, really accurate, wonderful. Pronunciation. The pronunciation is good. Chunking is especially good. Intonation is good. One thing I will say is that the accent, it is, and there's a difference like between band 9 where the accent has no effect on intelligibility and then band 8 where the accent has minimal effect on intelligibility. I'm thinking pronunciation is kind of 7-8. It's certainly not a 9, but it is decent between that 7 and 8. As the test goes on, I'll need to you know make a decision about that. Fluency and coherence is the weakest thing. Where in terms of coherence, like, well, this is the personal part, but the candidate is talking about a lot of things in general. But the thing that's really getting in the way is this neurotic speech pattern. Where there's often the repetition of the same idea, there's an inability to relax, formulate a sentence and deliver the sentence. It just feels a little bit machine gunny. It's like the candidate is just speaking like then like he doesn't really quite know what to say, and he has a lot of English and but knows a lot of English, and it's like there's got a lot of English in his mind, but like he's just trying to get everything out as quickly as possible. But he's like saying a lot without really, and so sometimes it feels just a little bit, yeah, as I would say, chaotic. I'd say the speech patterns are chaotic. The candidate is on topic. There's no problem there, but all of this use of like, and the repetition after repetition after repetition of ideas, it is, you're not going to get a band 9 or a band 8, I think, with that kind of speech, which is maybe a bit unfair because I know quite a few L1 users who also speak like this. um Art being articulate shouldn't really be a measure. Well, I don't know, it's debatable. Let's just say the candidate isn't the most articulate speaker. But let's have a look at part two. Now, I will say my performance as an examiner isn't perfect here because during the test, I don't think you can hear it on the audio, but there was a lot of background noise. My neighbors were drilling, and so I could hear this through the walls, but I think Zoom has some noise reduction, so it didn't pick it up. So if there seems to be some weird pauses in my questions, sorry about that. That's my neighbors.
I can see it clearly.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so the candidate needs to describe a time when the weather stopped him from doing something. Great. This allows you to tell a story about something that happened in the past, which means if you're well prepared and you know your narrative tenses and your adverbs and your sequences and things like this, you should be fine. If you're good with descriptive language, telling a story is a skill that I think all IELTS candidates should develop. It's not guaranteed that in part two you'll have to tell a story about something that happened in the past, but it comes up so often that, I would definitely recommend developing that skill. And then note at the end, then explain how you felt about this situation. Again, there's an invitation here to use emotive language, right? Language talking about emotions. You'll have between 1 and 2 minutes to give your talk, and I'll let you know when the time is up. Can you start speaking now, please?
Okay. So, so the time, when the weather stopped me from doing something was like about a week ago. So I remember, that is when I was playing football with my, my friends, and we were having a ton of like good laughs.
Cool. We were having nice past continuous. We started with past simple. We were having, I think he says, a ton of laughs.
And
Just
suddenly
notice.
remember, that is when I was playing football with my, my friends, and we were having a ton of like good laughs, and
We were having a ton of good laughs. I love this, like really natural, a ton of good laughs. Cool.
suddenly it started to
I notice a lot of my commentary so far has been quite negative about this fluency stuff, but let's notice some positive things.
rain. And we actually did try to keep it moving.
Cool. I like this use, the adding the auxiliary verb. We actually did try to keep it moving. We actually did try to. Cool.
Keep the ball moving.
Keep the ball moving, keep something doing. So nice complex gerund pattern there.
But the ground was so slippery.
Awesome. The ground was so slippery. Really, really precise vocab.
And I actually got slipped.
Now, the candidate says I actually got slipped, which is a weird thing. I actually slipped. We don't use get slipped. We use get plus adjectives often in this context, right? Get confused, get lost, get angry, but not got slipped. Slip is a verb. I actually slipped.
And then we had
cool, nice sequencer, and then
to stop it. It was like
we had to stop it. So showing some nice past modality.
It was really disappointing, because like we
Cool, we get disappointing, that language connected to emotions.
were having a lot of like good laughs, a lot of fun,
Bit of repetition of ideas.
and we wanted to keep it engaged.
Wanted to, really nice with the pronunciation there, that connected speech. We wanted to, and then candidate says we wanted to keep it engaged. And I often feel like, engage is one of those IELTS buzzwords that everyone uses, but it doesn't mean anything. And I don't know what it means. We wanted to keep it engaged. I don't know.
We want to keep it moving, but the rain stopped us from doing what we love.
Yep, repetition of ideas.
So
the candidate is, I think, under a minute here. I think he's about 50. I don't know exactly when he started. I think it was 6:40. Yeah, I think the candidate's been going for about 50 seconds. And it's clear now that the candidate has broken down and has finished the story. And now he's going to try and keep going.
yeah, it was a very heavy rain, and after that, we changed the plan, instead of playing football.
So now, I mean, it's still relevant. I like the fact that the candidate spots that he needs to keep going, but I would advise the candidate to get more out of this, describing the time when the weather stopped you from playing football. That's what the minute should be. That's what the 2 minutes should be. I mean, it's okay. You're talking about what you did instead. That's connected.
We actually went into
Bit of overuse of actually. I feel like actually, it's a bit too much.
a bar, and then we had like some cocktails.
Cool to have some cocktails, really good. And I like this use of some. Not just we had cocktails, but we had some cocktails. Really good.
And talked about the things that we have experienced, like
All the things that we have experienced lately. I do notice this extra emphasis on that word have again, the things that we have experienced.
and then we had like some cocktails and talked about the things that we have experienced.
Again, it should be the things that we've experienced. That stress should be on experienced, not on the have. The things that we have experienced. The things that we have experienced. So there is some limitation there when it comes to sentence stress and appropriate chunking. I do think the candidate generally chunks well, but there are some instances, especially with this present perfect, where the candidate puts that stress on the modal, on the auxiliary verb have, but this should be the stress on the main verb experienced. Have experienced, yes. Have experienced,
lately, and the situation is not that bad, but
and back in the present, the situation is not that bad, so I'm not sure why we're in the present.
because that we were so like we were,
And it's clear now, right? The candidate now is freestyling. Whatever notes the candidate took or whatever preparation the candidate had, he is off road, he is off script, and he's struggling now to produce ideas. He's just thinking, I think, in his mind, I need to keep going, and I don't know. So this is an organization problem, and with a little bit of practice, a little bit of technique training, the candidate won't have any difficulties filling 2 minutes.
so engaged in.
And again, so we engaged in, candidate feels lost, throwing in that generic word engaged, which doesn't really mean anything here.
In the match, and then we had to stop it, for no reason.
Repetition of idea.
And yeah, that was in total, it was very, very disappointing for all of us.
And while you can't see, the candidate's lower half, I imagine his legs are kind of jumping up and down right now. You kind of feel a little bit of that panic. There's no reason to panic. I know it's a test. Everyone's nervous. Everyone's a bit stressed out when it comes to taking a test. I understand that. But your English is great. So try to hold yourself together emotionally or psychologically. But that advice doesn't mean it. It's too easy to say, try to calm down, try to be relaxed. Do research into different things that you can do to help yourself to feel relaxed. Try to understand why you have this chaotic feature in your speech, and then come up with a strategy to help yourself to calm down. I think the candidate ends it there.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does. All right, so comments on part two. Candidate's vocab is superb. I will say that. The candidate's grammar is also great. Were maybe just a slight limitation in range. We got some past simple, we got some past continuous, we got a bit of past modality. We didn't really get much in terms of like reported speech or something like that, which could have been used. Other past modals I could have done, should have done, would have done, might have done. Those things could be exploited to show a bit more range. Maybe some extra tenses like past perfect or past perfect continuous. They're perfect here, no pun intended. Perfect tenses, past perfect continuous are great for stories, narratives, and the candidate doesn't quite exploit the full range of grammar that's available. We will say the accuracy is great, but maybe not quite the range that I would expect. Yeah, I would expect a band 9 candidate just to display a bit more range, but vocab is great. Fluency, the same problem. It's just chaotic. Ideas are on topic. You go for about 50 seconds, run out of ideas, add some connected information, fine, and then start repeating yourself. So, yeah, fluency and coherence are probably the weakest part. Let's get to part 3. And notice, I just want to make a point because I remember something about this. In part 1, where you're supposed to talk about yourself, the candidate often spoke about things in general. Now, in part 3, where you're supposed to speak about things in general, I remember the candidate spoke about himself a little bit too much in part 3. Okay, thank you. All right, so you've been. Oh, you can just about hear that background noise of the drilling. Sorry about the background noise. So you've been talking about this time when the weather stopped you from playing football. Let's talk about the weather a little more now. Do you think the weather can influence people's moods? So do you think the weather can influence people's moods? This isn't does the weather influence your mood? Can the weather influence people's moods? We're setting it up to speak about things in general.
Uh, so personally, I think it is. It does. It does like influence the people's mood. Sometimes. So whenever I have a bad
Whenever I have. So now he's talking about himself, and it's like part 1, speak about yourself. Part 3, speak about people in general.
like it is also related to the weather as well. So whenever it is sunny at the outside, I usually feel like positive.
Notice that dropping of the T on the outside. On the outside. So we don't quite get that t. We don't quite get the d. I think in outside. Let's just listen again.
The weather as well. So whenever it is sunny at the outside, I usually
Outside. Yeah, outside. Dropping that T is okay. Outside. But we want to get that d in there. Outside. Outside. Outside.
feel like positive, and I usually like feel like motivated. But when it rains,
I think pronunciation is probably closer to the 7.
my body just feels like it doesn't want to do anything. Yeah. So I think it does affect the people moods.
Yeah, first grammar mistake I've noticed is Canada says it does affect the people moods, and it should be does affect the people's moods. And why does? But that might be a pronunciation problem because, like I mentioned, many people from East Asia find it difficult to pronounce consonants when they appear at the end of sentences. So people's sounds like people. Some people dislike hot and sunny weather. But again, why do some people dislike hot and sunny weather?
Um, I think it depends, right? So so my hometown and my country as well. So it's like a tropical country. So we do actually enjoy the heat.
Okay, but let's get to the question. So great that you actually enjoy the heat and people in your country do. That might be good as like extra information, but the recommendation I always give to candidates is answer the question directly first and then add your extra information. So the question is, why do some people dislike the heat? So don't tell me that, in my country it's quite tropical, so we like the heat. All of that's extra information. And it's not absolutely 100% wrong to do this, but I think I'm a very simple man. And I think, well, if you're asked a question, why do some people dislike hot and sunny weather? The first thing that you should do is to tell me why, in your opinion, some people dislike hot and sunny weather. Like a mirror.
And I don't like the cold at all.
I don't like the cold at all. Again, Candid speaking about himself.
But some people, I think they were born in the very cold countries,
Now he's getting to the meat of the question.
and then when they travel into the hot country like Vietnam, they cannot sustain the heat.
Yeah, I had that problem. I haven't been to Vietnam. I've been to Cambodia and I've been to Thailand, and the heat was difficult for my very sensitive skin.
And they will start to feel like, oh, the weather is not like made for them. So I think
Yeah, the weather is not made for them. Lovely use of passive, lovely use of collocation. The weather is not made for them. I think, some people some people might listen to the candidate and notice those aspects of chaotic speech and think like, oh, therefore the candidate must be about a 6. Trust me when I say the candidate is far above a 6. Some people suggested, I think, a 6 or a 6.5. I think because they were just noticed that some of the limitations in the fluency. Trust me when I say that the candidate's grammar and vocabulary are incredible.
It depends on a kind of people, you know.
We do get that it depends on quite a lot though. So I don't know, like a little bit of repetition. And sometimes when I see candidates repeating the same like phrases and things, I often wonder, well, is that a limitation in vocab, or is it just part of your communicative repertoire that you're just comfortable with? I don't know.
That lives
Thank you.
in.
Yeah. So again, candidate has that problem where he finds it difficult, where he's ended a turn and it's like, okay, I'm going to speak now, and then the candidate wants to continue. And many people really like snowy weather. And why do some people like snowy weather? Sorry about that.
I think, you know. So for me, right? I think it depends on
And we get this. It depends on.
your curiosity. So you know, so I was born in Vietnam.
Again, I was born in Vietnam, but in part one, you spoke about people in general, and you should speak about yourself. Now, in part three, you should speak about people in general, and you're talking about yourself.
I have never seen any snow in my life, and you know, if
Nice use of present perfect.
I have a chance to go to the snowy area,
I have a chance. I think he says change.
your curiosity. So you know, so I was born in Vietnam and I have never seen any snow in my life, and you know, if I have a chance to go to the
Yeah, I think chance just about make you can just about understand it.
snowy area, like to the country that has snow, the first thing I want to say
Again, snowy area, to a country that has snow. It's too much paraphrasing.
is like you know snow, and I want to make like the snow angel.
Love it. The candidate knows this term snow angel. I want to make a snow angel. The candidate has absorbed and acquired so much English. Cool.
So it depends on the curiosity
But again, we come back to this. It depends on, and again, we get that third time he mentions curiosity. Don't repeat your ideas.
of the people.
Mhm. Now, a lot of, and we get that nodding and yeah, yeah, which again is a bit chaotic. A lot of people use the weather as a common topic for small talk. And why do people talk about the weather for small talk? I think I've asked 3 questions with why. I shouldn't do that.
I think it is because it is a small talk, right? So
Why do people use the weather for small talk? That is because it is small talk, right? Bit circular.
weather is kind of like you know the very like common topic, right? You know, you can have a chat with your friend in a cafe, and you say like, hey, you know, yesterday the weather was so bad, you know, and I didn't feel like you know doing anything.
Okay, the candidate gives an example or role plays a dialogue between friends about making small talk about the weather. But the question is, why is the weather and not other things? Why is the weather a common topic? I guess clear answer would be, well, it's not very personal. It's very difficult to offend people. If you're talking about like latest news or something like this, people can be upset about it. Whereas the weather seems like a very safe topic. That's probably the reason why people speak about the weather. Or the other thing might be, there are some topics that people don't know about. If you ask them about the latest sport event, maybe that person hasn't watched it, but we all see the weather every day. And so, it makes it an easy topic. That's another reason why weather is a common topic. And I don't think we quite got at the heart of the question.
So the weather is just like a stepping stone, you know, for a bigger chat.
Well, all small talk is a stepping stone for a bigger chat, or just a performative bit of social cohesion. But why the weather is the question, not why do we have small talk, but why is the weather a topic for small talk?
So that's why they usually engage, you know, that they
Again, we're getting back to this engage. So for me, those type of, this repetition of it depends on and this overuse of engage, which is just dropped in a few too many times, for me, that stops the candidate from getting a band 9. But I do think the candidate's vocab is at band 8.
start the conversation with the weather, like a stepping stone.
Repetition of idea again. And let's talk a bit more about small talk then. What are some other common topics for small talk?
Um, I think so for the young generation like me, I think we usually
Again, it's okay for the young generation, that's people in general, but people like me, I would just advise stay away from the personal stuff in part 3.
talk about games, video games, about
Video games could be small talk. Maybe it could be.
sports or something like that, right? And um, what did you say again? I didn't remember the question.
Yeah, what are some other topics that people use to talk about to make small talk?
I think it. So for me, it is about like video games, sports, especially.
So for me, question is, what are some common topics for small talk in general? And that it says for me. Again, it's not, I wouldn't say it's terribly wrong, it's not awful, it's not critical, but it is something I would work on, focusing on, part 1, talk about me, part 3, talk about things in general.
MMA. I love MMA as well.
And it will allow you, I think, to exploit more grammar and more vocab. Yeah.
So I usually like use MMA topic to talk with my friends who are also like interested in
But is that small talk? I don't know.
fighting sport.
Seems at least medium talk. In what situations do people usually make small talk? When they meet someone for the first time, when they don't really have a lot of things in common, maybe when they're speaking to a relative, where it's more important just to say something and what you say isn't important, but just the act of speaking is important. Sometimes when people have job interviews, they make small talk in order to try to build rapport with somebody. Those are some different situations.
I think whenever you go to a cafe or whenever you have like a free time.
Whenever you go to a cafe or whenever you have free time, I think those are really situations associated with small talk.
And when you see your friend, when your friend is at your house.
I don't know. Do you make small talk with your friend? I don't know. Maybe some people do. I guess I try not to make small talk with my friends.
I think that is when you start to talk with your friend, about to have a small chat.
And is small talk only done between friends, or can it be done between strangers?
I think it could be done, with the strangers.
Cool. Now I hope you'll go into some of those situations in society where small talk is used.
So I think myself, I am very like sociable. So whenever I go to
And the candidate speaking about himself, but we're looking for situations. What are some common situations in which people make small talk?
the beach, and when I see like somebody, walking, with me.
Again, lovely grammar. When I see somebody walking, see somebody doing something. Again, a lot of people might not notice this amazing range of grammar that he has, but it's really superb.
I usually have a small chat with them, and sometimes they reply, and sometimes they don't. But that, whenever they don't, it doesn't affect me at all. I will keep like continuing.
I will keep continuing is a bit strange, right? I will continue continuing. Now, some people say that small talk is a complete waste of time. What do you think?
I don't think so. So
Love that as well? I don't think so. Straight in there. I don't think so.
small talk, like human beings, right? We are social. We are social animals.
Okay, we heard that in part 1, but here it is appropriate in part 3.
So I think like having a small chat is like when you are socializing, and socializing is actually good for your mental health and your well-being. So having a small chat for me is like it is very like ideal for your.
Yeah, very ideal. We had earlier very essential, and we get very ideal. We don't use very with our strong adjective, so it's really ideal, it's absolutely ideal, fine, but not very ideal.
um mental health.
And it's looking for the word well-being, but Okay, thank you. That is the end of the test. All right, so let's get into some marks. Before I do that, I want to say that the candidate was, really lovely guy. I really enjoyed speaking with him. Super friendly, super positive, has great English, is keen to get a good mark in his IELTS. Um, yeah, and the grammar and vocab just incredible. There is that chaotic aspect of his speech, but let's get into that. So, let's have a look here. Well, it looks like the right place. So let's have a look at the band descriptors exactly. So I want to take a look for fluency and coherence. I want to take a look at 7 and 6. I think it's going to be a 7. I'm fairly sure it's going to be a 7. So why not an 8? Topic development is coherent, appropriate, and relevant. Just not true for part 3. A lot of the topic development was a little bit weak. We had a lot of repetition. Notice here, hesitation may occasionally be used to find words or grammar. Very occasional repetition. No, the candidate had a lot of repetition, and so definitely not the band 8 for fluency and coherence. Able to keep going, absolutely. Readily produce long turns, absolutely. Without noticeable effort, absolutely. Some hesitation and repetition. I wouldn't say there's much hesitation, but there is repetition and self-correction, and I would say even more than some. Quite a lot of, I would say, noticeable repetition and self-correction, but they don't affect coherence. And I think just about that is true. Flexible use of spoken discourse markers, absolutely. Use of discourse markers for the candidate is great. Yeah. So for me, band 7 for fluency and coherence. Yeah, I don't, it's certainly not below. So I do think fluency and coherence is the thing to work on the most, but there's still enough in there for a 7. IMO lexical resource. So I don't think we get total flexibility and precision. We do get, a lot of idiomatic language, and I would say maybe even sustained. But I think probably wide resource, readily and flexible used. Flexibly used. I think that's true. Effective use of paraphrase is required. This is the only thing that I'm a little bit doubtful about, because the candidate overuses paraphrase and it makes it like difficult to listen to at times, just this constant repetition of the same thing. So be careful with that. But I do think overall, over the course of the test, the candidate displays a lot of great vocab. And I think there's certainly the range is close to a 9. But for me, lexical resource is going to be a band 8. Grammatical range and accuracy. And again, this, I don't even need to look at the 7. It's above a 7. Wide range of structures, yes. Flexibly used, yes. Majority of sentences are error free, yes. Occasional inappropriacies and non systematic errors, perhaps. A few basic errors may persist. No, maybe that one with the possessive, right? People's moods instead people moods versus people's moods. Um, could we say structures are precise and accurate at all times? Probably, maybe, but for me, just not quite enough range. I do think in part 2 there was scope for more range of grammar. And for me, for a band 9, I want to see a little bit more range. In terms of accuracy, you are at that band 9 level. In terms of range, you are close to it. But for me, it's probably going to be an 8. But a strong 8. Sometimes you see like a weak 8. For me, this candidate is a strong 8 with grammatical range and accuracy. And then with pronunciation, can be easily understood throughout, yes. Appropriate rhythm, it is mostly sustained, despite occasional lapses, that's true. Phonological features, I don't know. I think with the phonology, we do miss a lot of those consonants, and there are some, with the rhythm is mostly okay. Maybe this overuse of like, maybe that breaks up the rhythm a little bit, but accent has minimal effect on intelligibility. I think it's just slightly more than minimal. I think there is a I wouldn't say overly noticeable, but a just about noticeable effect on intelligibility from the accent. So for me, it brings the pronunciation score just down a little bit to a band 7. Um, so overall, for me, this performance is 7.5. But I would say, I fully expect this candidate to get a 9 in the listening, to get a 9 in the reading, because the candidate just knows English. Like, the candidate knows English so well. And if I was just checking, like, his knowledge of English, I think probably he would be at that C2 level. Unfortunately, the candidate has chaotic fluency, or chaotic disfluency, and that kind of gets in the way. And there are some pronunciation things which just stop it from being higher. But I think with a little bit of training, the candidate can improve. Definitely think the candidate should be aiming for a minimum of an 8. If he can hold it together, if he can find ways to relax, if he can remove that psychological block in his head that tells him, repeat what you just said, just breathe, think about your answer, and deliver your answer in a calmer and perhaps even a slower way, and we could get to that 8, because I do think you are fluent. You have to remove all of those little filler words. Probably you're speaking, maybe you're thinking, not thinking as fast as you can speak, and so you need to break up your speech with, like, probably, like, I think, like my actual friends. Yeah, so areas of improvement, really not many, really not many. I usually try to give 3. So um try to minimize your use of, you know and like. So some of these fillers are absolutely fine, but they are noticeably overused in your speech. Find a way to stay on topic and on in your notes for the whole of part of task 2. So it's noticeable that in task 2, after about 50 seconds, I think you were probably off script. So find a way, strategize, practice this part 2, time yourself, make sure that you have enough notes, learn how to take notes that will last you throughout the whole 2 minutes. And then finally, uh, I mean, it's too much to say find a way to calm down. I would say try to be a little more direct with your answers. You know, answer the question first and then add extra information if you want to. You have this tendency to speak around the question, but you add some extra information first and then get to the heart of the question. I think that's like the wrong way. Direct answer to the question, then add information. I think that's a better way. Um, and yeah, remember, speak about yourself in part 1. Speak about people in general in part 3. Because you had that a bit, the wrong way around, where you were speaking about people in general in part 1 and then speaking about yourself a bit too much in part 3. And that also affects the coherence. It's not fully relevant topic development. But anyway, the candidate knows English very, very well and is in a great position, right? He has 2 months, as I remember. He's going to take his test in 2 months. You can do a lot in 2 months. And I really, if you get less than 8.0, if you get 7.5 in the test, then you are not doing justice to your knowledge of English, because your knowledge of English is great. You have the potential to get a 9 in vocab, a 9 in grammar. You have the potential to get, I would say, an 8 in fluency and maybe an 8 in pronunciation. So I would say your ceiling is 8.5. An 8.0, I think, would be a good score. 7.5, and I think you're just underperforming a little bit. So really try to make those improvements. And I really hope you do very well. I don't think the candidate needs, like, for himself, he's looking for a high score, but I think for this license, this tourism tour guide license, I don't think he needs like a super high score. So he's going to be okay no matter what. So yeah, let me know what you think. Do you agree that the candidates' vocab and grammar were incredible? And do you agree that the fluency and coherence was, a little bit chaotic? And do you also agree that the accent maybe, just had a little bit too too much of a negative effect. Not a totally negative effect, still at that C1 band 7, but do you agree that maybe the accent, the pronunciation wasn't quite high enough for an 8? 7.5, comfortably C1. I think that's a fair mark. Remember, if you'd like to have your own free practice speaking test with feedback, sorry about that. I thought my microphone had cut out. If you'd like to have your own free practice speaking test with feedback, or if you'd like me to check your IELTS writing tasks, join one of my groups. I'm on Facebook and Telegram. Candidates are always selected at random. If you want to avoid the random process, you can pay for a speaking test, you can pay for a writing check, and a full price list is available on my website, expertexaminer.com. Links to everything are given in the description. More videos from me coming soon, but for now, bye bye.